Welcome to Actually Controller, the podcast that is actually Controller, and we are actually in control of everything you are hearing right now. I'm so very sorry. He's
the best
to use.
Well, it depends.
To pull off
too, in
the
studio,
best sound.
The studio is different than live.
Yes.
In a lot of situations, there are times where
I will get drum hits.
It's all right, everybody. The point is, there are times where I've played, even in my own stuff, where it's like, I don't even know how many guitars. I have a ton. But I'm like, I am not getting the sound that I want, and I'll borrow from a friend or something. It doesn't matter.
I've used so many of your different guitars in the course of recording because I'm like, mine's not doing it.
That's what it is. And when you're dealing with microphones, again, it's like, as a producer, we do walk around the room to hear what we want, because ultimately it's not what I hear sitting in the control room, it's what the mic hears.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's
what the mic hears, guys.
Yeah. The mic ain't hearing shit.
What a great point I just intentionally made, everybody. The mic isn't hearing me so good right now.
God, I wish everybody needs to watch this episode.
This thing, right? But it sounds different when I am right here, right?
Yeah.
God, if only you subscribe to our Patreon for 1 month to watch this episode.
I'm not paying you guys. I'm kidding. You're paying me. I thought.
I know.
And cookies.
So we're going to be, by the time they hear this, we're going to be at what stage, you think, in the recording? So in 2 weeks from now.
This episode will actually be coming out.
Over a month.
This episode will be coming out actually the second week into the recording process.
Yeah, it depending on.
So at that point, who's being tortured?
Probably
I
Steve.
get to go in first.
Yeah, drums, especially this style of
I get
music, drums
flogged
are
first.
almost always the first. There have been times where that's not been the case. I know, there were times like Periphery sometimes did drums
North Lane's album Alien, drums were the last thing recorded.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. After our last recording with you, I actually didn't mind, other than my seating part, going in as the last.
Instrumentation.
Keyboard was always last when it came to the instruments, but having guitar record before me was great because then I had a better.
You had the reference.
Better reference than just the scratch tracks.
So we anticipate being like 2 weeks into it by the time this is released?
Yeah, we should be 2 weeks into the actual recording by that point of this episode. We'll be fresh into the start of the second week of the recording of this.
So tune in another episode for Controller's new drummer replacement.
No, it's guitarist. And technically, the guitarist replacement's the one who's recording
the
us.
new face of Controller is literally like Austin Putt's face all over our tour poster.
When Steve's done recording,
yeah, then the recording happens.
I quotes, yeah. Then he leaves, and I go, oh God, and then I just play it. Instead.
Well, there's a reason he pushed me to play on PRS forever ago because that's what he plays on. Yeah. So. That way it sounds the same.
Yeah, the same.
But yeah, the thing that I will say that, and again, kind of to bring it back, the big studio, it can be for some people.
Oh, absolutely.
But I personally think, and I might be wrong, but I personally think more people than not would benefit from not doing the personal recording, but finding the home studio that's an actual real studio.
Yeah, I mean, there are levels of quality.
But find a real studio that's in a home type environment. And even if you're not getting the producer end of it, at least if it's for nothing more than a single, go in, give it a try, because I have a feeling you're going to end up getting more out of that experience.
Yeah, and
then you would realize.
I love big studios, I cut my teeth in some of these things,
right?
And there is a charm to it. It's great, but because new technology has, the digital technology is so much more accessible financially. I mean, just the gear. I mean, if you're talking about a giant SSL console or Neve something, I mean, you're talking the amount of money.
Hundreds of thousands.
It's out of the realm of what a normal everyday person could handle.
Costs more than most of our houses combined.
But yeah, it can, and there's a lot of big time studios that have churned out hit after hit that have gone under because it's as you've said, it's like it's an evolving process, right? Music is evolving, the recording industry is evolving, and we're kind of have gotten to this point of the digital revolution where you can make great sounding recordings with not that expensive of a
So my point I was bringing up later, there's two big things I feel that have changed the game, both from a live performance, but probably from production too, is one, here in our area we have Sweetwater. So the accessibility, the number of musicians, the number of home studios that are popping up.
Yeah, this is a very different city, isn't it?
But the other thing is
because of
simply
that.
saying COVID, like 2020, there are a lot of people that, like, for instance, would probably outsource and find a producer or find a studio. It's like, hey, we're in lockdown. What am I going to do? Let's learn how to do X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
promote
Music
my brand.
sales,
on my
I
own.
think, we're up in that.
Oh yeah, no, they ended up throwing through the roof that they could not keep up with all the home studio elements like the laptops, the interfaces, monitors.
Yeah.
And they admitted that, but and I'm not even trying to say that this is from a charm level, because I mean, is there that aspect that you can have from going to a studio, be it a big one, be it a home one? Yes, but I'm saying from an actual like creative and growth standpoint, go find the home studio that is on a pro enough level where the gear's there,
Yeah.
the opportunities are there.
Yeah, if you search for a producer and you hear their work and you like it, they're going to know how
Yes.
where to go and what they want to record on in their process. And it's setting up expectations.
Yes.
Again, that's all of it. If we go in knowing what we're supposed to do, and if you're an aspiring band that wants to work with a producer, and you find somebody you have a good rapport with, understand that they're there to try to make you the best that you can possibly be. And if they're not willing to listen to you, kick them to the curb.
Yeah, they're not the right fit. And something that I also realized with our last release that we did that I want everybody else to realize, don't assume that somebody is out of your reach. If you're serious about this,
Absolutely.
do not assume somebody is out of your
Who
reach.
masters our mixes?
Yeah, exactly. Because we ended up getting one of my favorite producers of all times
Yeah.
to actually do all of our mastering
Legend.
for us. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, if you've ever listened to Carnival or Dead Letter Circus or 12-Foot Ninja or Animals as Leaders, I mean, the list goes on. This guy has his fingers deep in all of that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I simply just reached out to him saying, hey, we would love if you would be willing to work with us. And he hit back, yeah.
What's the worst that can happen? They can say no.
Or they don't reply.
Or they don't reply. There's no harm in reaching out.
But do not be intimidated if that's somebody, like he was saying, if that producer is doing something that sounds good to you and you feel like would complement the sound you're trying to achieve, reach out to them.
Bingo. Yep.
Just do it.
Yep.
And either worst case, they're going to say no or not reply, or second worst case, they're going to say, cool, here's the price point. You go, ugh.
which is also the other expectation.
Yeah.
Financially, also don't expect that you're getting this for free.
Yeah, it costs money to make music on a level, because let's face it, we've all spent how much money on gear, and we're always spending money on gear.
Yes.
I mean, I can't even imagine how many.
Okay, I'll get new drum heads.
No, but it's not even that. It's just like, some players they'll play on the same instrument forever and ever and ever.
Yep. Just look at Willie Nelson.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, I lost. What's his guitar's name? I forget.
Oh God.
And it doesn't matter. But that thing is old.
Isn't that like
It literally has a
Lucille or
hole in it.
something
No,
like that?
I think that's
No,
B.B.
that was
King.
Eric Clapton.
Oh, okay.
Wasn't Lucille BB King's?
Oh no, that was BB King's.
Yeah.
Doesn't Eric Clapton have one named Lucille too? Anyway,
I don't know about that.
I've never named my bass.
Trigger was that
Yes.
Willie Nelson's?
Yes, thank you.
But yeah, it literally has a hole worn out from
Yep.
his fingernails
Yep.
rubbing underneath where a pickguard should be.
Yeah.
But he's played on that thing for 50 plus years.
Because the thing is, when you've played an instrument for so long, it kind of becomes a part of your
Yes.
person. It's just, if I'm wearing a guitar, I don't feel any different. It doesn't seem foreign, and that could be the same case for Tiger Woods and a golf club. It's just that it just feels natural to you.
Well, it was weird. I normally play on a Spectre. I recorded on
A Fender.
a Fender.
Yeah, I think it was a J bass.
Yeah, it could have been the one in my
You
studio.
want to talk about
No.
I can
You
take you down a rabbit hole with comfortability. The number of drum kits I've played on,
Oh God, yeah.
rehearsed on.
Well, even
Recorded
like
on.
Drummers
auditioning,
especially
you
have that a lot.
when we ran
Whatever's
auditions,
available.
one of our criterias was you got to play on this drum set we have here because I want to see that you're able to be flexible on any
because
drum
we
set
roll
that's
into
gonna be-
shows where that's the house set. Giddy up.
There are certain instruments like that. If if you're in like the classical realm, it's like being a piano player. If you're
Oh, yeah.
piano is your instrument, you're probably not taking a piano with you.
No.
So you have to be able to adapt in whatever they have there. Or if you're backlining a show or something, you have to be flexible in that kind of stuff. But when it comes to studio, it is what is the instrument and the player that is going to get the sound that we're after. That's it. Nothing else.
We're there for a result.
That's it.
Yep.
And
Something about plugins.
Yeah.
a bunch of plugins.
And that's the thing is, and I think that Austin can also recognize this. Is the digital tech way evolved from what it used to be? Yes. However,
it's
something that he realized
on a
from
different planet than it
He-
used to be.
but something.
And zeros and ones.
Yes, but something else though that even Mr. Plugins recognized after a certain point, because when we first came in, he was all about the digital revolution, plugins
Oh, yeah.
galore.
Yeah.
That was his thing.
Yeah.
And then time went on. Then he realized there's still certain hardware
Oh yeah.
will always be more comfortable to have
Man,
the actual hardware.
having a distressor is just like chef's kiss, baby.
The distressor, certain preamps that you
Yeah.
recognize
Oh,
that
yeah.
I can get the emulator on.
Chandler
Yeah.
stuff.
But you realize
Pt.2,
I
baby.
want the hardware here because you can finesse a mouse as much as you want to try to get to that spot.
Yeah.
But it's never going to end up baking the same way, and it's
Yeah,
never going to end
well,
up
you have to look at
signal
these things-
degradation going through your patch bay, all that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at these things as tools. It doesn't matter if it's hardware or software. At times it did. I mean, there were certain software things that just were not up to snuff of what the hardware was
Yeah.
doing. And now, those... this is getting close. Like,
Oh, and I'm not saying that it hasn't continued to get better,
I
but
can't tell you. There's been several times where I've been in a big studio where they have a wall of these things, of these compressors, and you see them sitting there messing around with plugins.
Yeah.
It's very strange, and the reason is because it's just so easy. If you're like, oh, I know what I want. I want an 1176 compressor on this. There
Yeah.
it is, and you're rolling. Whereas with the hardware, you actually I know it seems silly, but like you physically have to move over to it, which
Yep.
does a lot of things. It changes where your ear is hearing.
well,
in the
and
stereo
your
field,
studio, it's
and-
not as inconvenient. You're talking the big studios, though.
Yeah.
You might have a rack console that's over 1,000 feet away.
Unless he realizes, oh wait,
Not a
something's
thousand.
not plugged
I know
in
what
right
you're
on the
saying.
back.
Something's not plugged in.
I gotta crawl around to the back of my wall here.
Oh yeah, well
yeah, before you got your patch
Well,
bay.
that's the thing. When you get to a certain point where it's like, okay, it's time to get a patch bay because I just don't want to have to go back here, again. And
Right.
now I can just go like a lazy person.
Yeah, but at the same point, this is kind
Which is
of
fantastic.
bringing up that whole thing for bands that are wanting to consider this. Get yourself into that environment at least one time for
Yeah.
a single,
Yes.
even if
If you're
you're
more
doing it
comfortable with
yourself,
it. Yep.
to
Sure.
just get the experience and see what it means to have somebody at the helm for you that actually is as invested as you are in the product you're trying to turn out that time.
Yep.
So, my recent experience with Clarity, we've got the upcoming EPs dropping.
Yep.
Midsummer, late summer.
Theoretically, we have one dropping here in a month.
There you go. So stick around.
Theoretically,
Well, this one
Theoretically.
doesn't have any of Austin involved in it. So.
hypothetically.
Yeah.
No, theoretically.
Theoretically,
Yeah. But yeah, that one does not have Austin involved in it whatsoever. Actually, that one, by
I
the
don't know
time
what you're
this
talking
episode
about.
should be.
he's like, that's blasphemy.
Yeah, I know.
We shall not name
No, I-
or
I-
discuss.
Well, you
I
can
literally
yell
don't
at
know what
Jeff. Jeff's handling the helm on all of that one on
Oh,
that
okay.
EP.
Go ahead.
So, theoretically, hypothetically, whatever framing you want, by the time this episode is out, the EP should actually have already been out. I really hope that it was already
But
out.
but speaking to producers and
Yes.
engineers, you'll be able to see the other side of Contrøller. Some of the
Yes.
things that Jeff has been working on, you've been working on, and then going forward, we'll have 2 more EPs with Putt, right?
Three.
So
Three
you'll be
more
able to
with
see
him.
that all-encompassing sound that we've got going on.
Yeah, and the big separation between, and this, by the way, Jeff, when you listen to this has nothing to do with you. I am not knocking you. There is
He's knocking you.
Yeah,
I'm kidding. Come on now.
there is always going to be a difference.
Love your
between-
guts.
Yeah, love your guts. But there's always going to be a big difference between when you have hundreds and thousands of dollars worth of equipment and options at your disposal to at least try to sweeten the sound of a recording, comparison to when you're working with what you have. Not that the recording's going to sound bad. I want to make that
Oh, what
very
I've
clear.
heard from the pre-pros is sounding pretty good.
Here's the thing that the point I'll make about that is there's, just like I said, the player and the instrument is more important than the gear.
Yep.
That actually goes for producers and engineers as
Yes.
well. If you have that skill set, like at this point in my career, I'd be very comfortable with just using stock plugins, and that's it.
Have you ever used a tissue box as a
As a
mic
pop
screen?
filter,
Oh,
Isn't that what it was? Tissues?
it was
Oh,
a
pantyhose.
tissue box that we had ended up stretching
is that what you?
dryer sheets.
I was going to say you can make a pop filter
And
out of
phones.
pantyhose.
Yeah, we did
That's
the
classic.
we did the filters, and also I can't remember what other screening we did over it, but it was an actual tissue
Yeah,
box.
you do whatever you got to do. If it gets you the sound, what's the classic
Well, we
thing?
were using it over the actual old school Microsoft computer microphone that came with it because there was no type of an interface. We're
Yeah.
talking back over 20
I see
years
what you're
ago.
saying. Yeah, and to that point, it's whatever you have to do to get the sound. I mean, there are things that I've even been trained on, like taping a cup to a microphone to get better isolation of the snare,
Yeah.
so you don't get as much cymbal bleed and all that. But there are so many modern
Yeah.
techniques, and some of
There's
the
a-
gates have gotten so good these days.
There's something
my
from
last
Hosa for
recording
that, don't worry.
experience, I was exposed to the dick mic, and yes, I chose those words. We didn't use
Yeah,
that
we're the
before.
one straight off of the
Literally,
kick.
like straight into my crotch as I was to pick up like an ambient sound. I was like, "Oh, that's cool."
Did
The
I
dick
do
mic.
that?
No.
Oh.
No. That was what I was using before I got the full mic kit.
Oh,
Going for the
you can get a
set.
good drum sound with two mics. I mean, you can. It's not going to be as, like, say, modern. Or
Yeah,
as
no,
wide
I
or
had one
whatever,
going into the kick, and then I had one mounted on top of the kick to grab all the toms, the snare,
yeah,
and
as an engineer, your job is to figure out how to make it work. And
Yep.
if I mean, there are times I've done.
Don't mind this microphone down between your legs.
Yeah.
It's fine.
yeah. I've done remote recording sessions and everything, and you can only take so much.
Yeah.
And like I said, if you limit your resources, you become more resourceful. You have to.
yeah. I mean, and also on top of that, at that point in time, I didn't have the secondary mixing board, so I had 4 inputs, period, to work with. So
Yeah.
it's like, cool, I have 4, and only 2 of them have an actual Phantom attached to it, and I
Yeah.
need Phantom.
Yeah.
So I have 2 mics ultimately now is what I'm dealing with,
Yeah.
and that's that.
And to my point, back to what I was saying, is that, like, when you gain the skills of a producer, know what sounds good. I mean, there are producers who don't touch a mixing board, or so to speak, but a lot of modern producers now kind of do it all. I am, the confidence any of these guys, any top line producer, could make a pro record with nothing but, say,
A laptop and
a laptop with Pro Tools or Studio One, and using stock plugins that come with it, and that's
Right.
it. I am 100% confident I could make a pro record with just that stuff.
an interface.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you need an
Yeah.
interface, but
In her face.
you could get something.
Oh,
Well, gosh, the UA, Apollos. I mean, they're not the cheapest things, but like
Yeah.
just the Apollo Twin or whatever they're
Yep.
called. I mean, you see those in all over the place in high level recordings.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, and I mean, everybody
so
knocks
accessible.
on Focusrite, but Focusrite didn't end up getting their Scarlet line so popular because it sucked.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't. Well, yeah, and I wouldn't knock on Focusrite. I mean, the thing is, there is this kind of like, what do they call it?
The options are there for the home studio. The options are there for the bedroom warrior to do everything to a high quality. Yes. But to get people like you more business in this dying industry of the studio,
Of the big time studio, yeah.
because I mean, let's be honest, that is a dying
There
industry.
are more recording studios now than ever before, and it's not close. But the big time studios that you're talking about, those
Yeah.
are the ones that have decreased a ton.
Yeah,
Just the nature of
the one
digital
thing that I will
revolution.
say, it's this weird situation where the need for the studio to have the accessibility for drum recording is less required, but that almost, in my opinion, is a bad thing because everybody is so comfortable with the same tone of drum. Now, from the GGD stuff, not saying that it's a bad plugin, but
It's not bad. Not bad at all.
all the GGD stuff, everybody's going to the same sets.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Everybody's going for the same tone to where we've talked about this in the past where with the Kemper profiles, with Helix and all that stuff, are they good? Yes. Love them. We use them. But everybody keeps going back to the same patches.
Yeah, because they work.
And they work,
Yeah.
but that then ends up turning to where everybody's album, if you're a metalcore band, every metalcore album sounds the same.
Yeah, and
every
that is
deathcore album
that
sounds
is
the same.
It is a good point, and you're not wrong. There is a lot of ways to change sounds and to make them your own, and that goes for things like chord progressions. You can't copyright a chord progression, right?
Correct.
But you can make it your own. And you listen to a band like Sigur Rós, from Iceland. It's like super ambient stuff, using a lot of the most common chord progressions, but they have done it a different way. So there's more than one way to make something your own.
Yes.
And that's one thing I'll give you guys. I mean, Contrøller has a very unique sound. And I think Jeff is a big part of that. I really do. I mean,
You hear that,
keyboard
buddy?
parts-
We love you.
Jeff.
Yeah. Well, he knows I've always felt
He
that. way.
had joked. The running joke is who's being replaced, and he's like, "Well, I'm the easiest to get cut. I play keys." I'm like, "No, I would agree with you. It's definitely
Yeah,
makes
I
the
mean,
sound."
that's just that kind of sheen that's just unique.
We've always, between him and I over all the years, because I mean, me and him have worked together in multiple facets and everything like that over the years. We've always viewed him, between him and I, when we're working on stuff, he is the lead guitarist with all the extra bells and whistles at his disposal.
Yeah.
Because
Well, and he's a creative guy. I mean,
he's a creative guy, but if you consider the standard rock band of the 5-piece with the 2 guitars and everything, he usually
second
ends up
guitar.
taking over that role with
Yeah,
the
you're
parts
right,
that
yeah.
he's creating
Absolutely.
of the lead overtoned melody and everything
Yeah.
like that.
And it gives you a
But
very unique sound. for
because
sure.
he's doing it with distorted trumpets, or he's
Yeah.
doing it with an actual baby grand tone, or just a synth pad or something like that. It ends up giving us that capability of being in a constructual configuration of the standard rock
Yeah,
band.
and
It's
it-
5-piece, but whole different
I
sound.
completely agree. I mean, if anybody's replaceable, it's you, Steve.
I've been arguing this for years, but
Clearly-
you keep
clearly
not
it's the
answering the
drummer.
phone.
Well, Steve says that I can't go anywhere because there's not enough bass players around
Yeah,
here.
I already have been trying to tell Austin if you just answer his damn phone, he would already have the job.
No.
I am literally nothing but the liaison at this point.
Have you talked on the podcast? Have you talked to them about your finger injury?
Not really. I mean,
We don't have to get into it. I
No,
was
it's
just curious if
it's
that was
been
ever a
touched on a
topic.
little bit, but I mean, it's not really been overly elaborated. How I almost was sitting with
You
3
almost chopped your
fingers.
finger off.
Yeah.
When I saw that, I was like, oh, because you had posted it on Facebook, and I was like, oh my God. I don't know if he'll ever play guitar again.
Yeah.
I'm serious. And that wasn't that long ago, was it?
That was in
5 years?
2019.
2019.
I was healed out of physical therapy and finishing writing the EP in 7 months
Yeah.
because I said, F it.
Well, you've had to kind of change your technique a little
Yeah.
bit, and I think you've done really well with that.
For the first 2 months after physical therapy, my nerve endings were so damaged that I literally could not feel
Yeah.
me pressurizing the neck. There was no. I had to actually watch my finger
Yeah.
to know that I was pressing.
Yeah, because you couldn't feel it otherwise.
I felt nothing in my finger, so I actually had to watch. And
That's
there
like
was
my nightmare, dude.
there
Oh,
were certain
seriously.
times where I had to actually mentally tell myself to let go because I was realizing that it was actually starting to create blood blisters in my finger from pressing so hard because I couldn't
You
feel
couldn't feel
anything.
the pressure. Yeah. Man, that's so
So,
wild.
But yeah,
Anyway.
I mean, it's one of those. If you're determined to do this, you will find a way to do this
Yeah.
type
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
But to kind of bring it all around, yes, the big studio is a dying thing. Are there more studios than there ever used to be? Yes.
Yeah, don't get caught up in the big glitz and glamour of the gear of the big studios.
Bingo.
But do get caught up in finding the right people to work
But dude,
with.
did you see that board that has like 300 sliders on it?
And they only use the same
They
seven.
only
I
use like
remember
5.
when I was like a teenager. I think I was 13 when I made my first record. It was like a little EP 3-song thing I did with my very first band, and you know, we were so young, we didn't know what we were doing, but I was just so impressed because the guy had a big old mixing board and everything, and he was actually really good.
And he was entertaining you by letting you be there.
Yeah, kind of. And anyway, but that's how that was kind of the juvenile perspective that we had.
Well, and I mean, it's only so juvenile back in that era, though, because it was actually a big deal.
Yeah, I think
to have that
we were
at your
using ADATs back then.
Yeah, I
and-
mean, your reel-to-reel, your ADAT, your the era and everything like that, to have that much of an option, you needed to have that big of a board if you had a band that was coming and going, I want to be able to layer 6-7 guitar parts
and
over
have the
top of
control
this.
at least.
Yeah.
Because when you have like a 4-track or something, you know, in the past in the 60s or something like that, you could bounce 4 tracks down into 1 track and then have 3 more to go. But then you've really lost a lot of individual control.
Yeah, you better have sweetened everything the way you wanted before you did
and
the
so
bounce.
it was very challenging. And so, but yeah, now we're talking about what can your computer handle? It's unlimited tracks.
And if it can't, then build a slave tower, and
Yeah.
then build another slave tower, and then build another one, right?
I call them indentured servants.
Yeah, well, they are.
That's
But
2023.
yeah, the options are very much it's a playground. What you want to do in the music industry from a recording standpoint now is it's up to you.
Yeah, it's just resources and skill. And if there's any advice I can give to anybody, regardless of whether they're playing music or wanting to be a producer or an engineer, the tools are important, the gear is important, but you need to focus on your skills and gaining better skill sets.
And that is
Continue
why
to
he
grow and learn.
continuously
You have
tells
to.
me I'm getting fired.
Yeah, because Steve, if anything, has gone the opposite direction.
Yes. And it has nothing to do with the finger.
No.
It's just me.
Which reminds me, how many times have you given me the finger?
The finger.
A billion?
A lot.
Anyway, no.
So the
cut that out.
nickname that Putt gave me years and years ago was F.U. Steve.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, nobody else did.
So sorry.
Yeah, we haven't forgotten.
Yeah, nobody else
I wouldn't
did.
have expected it. Anyway, Chris is over here like, wrap this up.
I'm just thinking about all the outtakes from my previous band and how many times I've dropped the F-bomb.
But yeah, the
kind of ingrained.
That's staying.
yeah.
That's staying. Oh, that's the outro. Oh, that's a good finish right there. Cool.
Ooh. But yeah, I want to kind of actually get a little bit of before we cut this and everything, we've had our time where we've had years and years and years of experience and everything, and we kind of already have our rapport and expectations when we're walking to the studio. Before we go, though, obviously there was some tension. We'll use the word tension. Between Chris and Austin on their very first encounter.
Buy a new set of
But I will
trying to
ask.
reopen old scars.
No. I
let
will
that
ask
heal.
outside of that component of it. With you having previous experiences, kind of like me, where you've had everything from the guy who renoed the garage to being in the big studio, like at Sweetwater and stuff like that, and then other things in between. Was it comfortable, like I was saying, like it felt like for me,
it definitely
or
was.
like what component of it, like did it feel like to you? Was it kind of on
There was
par?
definitely some good community. There was, again, it's the communication and being able to compromise
Sure, yeah.
on certain things. But I also, like, even after I laid down my tracks, being able to come back in there to sit and listen to them and still banter about, what were your intentions here? Because many of you don't know, I'm not a really good double kick drummer, and sometimes my left foot is really soft. And I remember specifically with Clarity, there was a triple fill that I was doing between the toms. And
Oh,
you're
yeah.
At one point, you moved them to 16ths, and I'm like, no, that's not it. And you're
Yeah,
like,
we
"Ooh,
realized they were
and then
tough
you
ones.
had a white bulb, and you're like,
Mhm.
oh, you're trying to do triples,
Yeah.
and you moved it back and that's part of that snap.
Yep.
it didn't snap it because I wasn't there. It wasn't prominent enough to snap it right.
Yeah, it was
So-
understanding your intention.
But yeah,
Once
so that
we
was-
knew that, it was like,
Yep.
yeah, it was
Yep.
easy. Yep.
So,
for
and
sure.
that's something you don't get. It becomes more awkward in a big studio when you're rolling in. You're on a time crunch. You're dealing with people you've never worked with
Yeah,
before,
right.
and you're like, okay, I'm here from 5 to 9.
Yeah,
I've
or
gotta
the guy
get
who's just
XYZ done.
literally only looking at the clock.
yeah.
Well, from the experience that I had with my other band in the big studio, that's what it was like. So it was like it took a little bit. Like we're setting up, we had to banter. There was this real like getting to know you moment. Like, okay, how does this operate? You basically are saying, "Hi, I'm Chris, and I'm whatever his name was."
You're
Sean
walking
or
almost
whatever.
onto a porn set because you feel that vulnerable.
No,
honestly,
for sure. And then it was like, how did you approach?
But I'm not wrong.
How do you approach explaining what you're trying to do when they, at the end of the day, they just want to make sure it sounds good?
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely am looking forward to the next 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a fun time, dude.
Oh, it's always a joy.
Yeah.
But yeah, because
It's work.
Yeah,
You know?
and
It
it's
is work.
and I don't want to minimize that at all. It is work when you go into a studio, especially when you're trying to get a pro quality product.
But it's exciting too.
And I
You
wanted
get out what you put in.
Yes.
And part of that and bringing it back to where you're going, having a producer that's on board, having the smaller producer that's not necessarily enamored with thousands of dollar gear, but
I don't
it's
know.
more about the product
Yeah.
and making sure that we. And I'm encompassing the producer as
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
like I said,
the
we
sixth
are a
member.
6-piece band.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see, I said it.
Yeah, Austin is.
We are going to release
We're,
something. Yeah.
But yeah, that because I wanted to just kind of get that outside input and everything because we're too close to the sun, if you will. We've been with this guy for a decade already, and kind of like Chad already pointed out, Austin and I go out, grab beers, and we'll just shoot the crap and everything like
Yeah,
that
it's nice to
outside
have
of
that
everything.
relationship.
A real good example of the relationship is even tonight, and you guys don't realize this, but we recorded in the big studio. We got two songs dropped. One was a remake, and one was an original. We got our copies the next day because we had our 10 hours. Our 10 hours was up, and that's it. I've never heard from them again. They didn't check on us. They didn't ask us how we released it. How your numbers going? Do you need help with anything else? And that's it. And just before this podcast, you were sitting down looking at numbers.
Oh, yeah,
did you
he-
realize that Clarity's released blah 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 blah? Went back to some other things. We talked about something aesthetically. What was the song that you liked that isn't doing
Void.
very well?
Yeah,
Void,
Void
yeah.
is one of Austin's favorite songs of all time.
And then the song that I wouldn't mind, is it Numb? No.
Quicksand.
Quicksand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that's the big difference, and that's why I kept trying to stress to somebody that is considering taking it from I'm just trying to make $5 and get a pitcher of beer, have fun over the weekend, to doing this on some bigger
There's-
of a level.
There's nothing wrong with that either.
Not at all.
If that's what you want to do.
Correct.
Get out what you put in.
Exactly. Yep.
But if you're wanting something a little bit more out of this, look for the guy that's going to be committed.
Yeah.
And you're not everybody's going to get the friendship level out of it, like what we've gotten
Sure,
to where
yeah.
we can just. I ask how the kids are doing. You ask how mine are doing.
Yeah.
We're going and grabbing beer. We're grabbing dinner and stuff
Well,
like
that's
that.
really how you know you found the right person too.
Oh,
you know?
yes.
You don't have to necessarily. I mean, it is a working relationship.
Yes.
But it's.
And that's another big thing. Do not expect just because you guys are friends that all of a sudden the discount because you're my bro is supposed to happen. There is supposed to always be there's the friendship
And then there's the business.
side,
relationship.
Yeah. And you have.
You
to,
can be friendly doing business,
Yeah.
but that does not mean
Yeah.
that it's still not business.
Yeah, I'm not going to break you, but at the same time, you understand the quality that you're getting, and there's a point at which if that number is so low, yes, that's attractive money wise, but no big band is going, oh yes, this person is only charging us $100 a song. You
Correct.
know, no, they're looking for, oh, this person's charging this amount,
Yep.
much higher, and that there's a sense of credibility there and all that kind of stuff. I don't, there's no. I never want to break somebody's bank. I want somebody's art to come out, but at the same time, you don't. You got to value your.
Oh,
no
yeah,
matter
and-
what you're doing with your.
And
job
don't get
or
us
your
wrong.
skills.
We understand that it's not fully rolls through all aspects of the live music part because, well, you're never going to actually get the dollar amount that you fully feel like your art is valued
the
at
artists always feel undercut because
in a live application.
lot
It's
of
just, yeah, that's not what part we're talking about. We're talking about the backside of
Yeah.
all of this and everything.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to, that's something I think also ends up getting missed, is that you find the guy that you think is going to be the guy, and then you think, well, but he's coming over to the barbecue. I shouldn't be getting charged the same hourly rate. I shouldn't be getting charged the same per track rate. And I'm not stating that you might not end up coming to an agreement if you work together for years
there
to
are
where
project rates
yeah,
and stuff
you can
for
get
sure.
project rates and stuff
Yeah.
like that. If you're actually truly in a good working relationship, you should be able to negotiate stuff like
Absolutely.
that.
Yep.
But
Well-
don't expect that you're going to
No,
get the
don't.
That comes also back to, like, you know, when you have friends who you are the band and friends are walking up like, oh, I've supported you and come to all these shows, you should give me free merch
Yeah.
or discounted tickets or something. Like,
Yeah, that's
no,
not
at some
how that
point
works.
that's not how any of this works.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At all. So
Yeah.
and that can't be any more real. It works universally, and the only big difference is that when you're doing the studio aspect, you're doing the producer aspect, the dollar amount is always going to be a lot higher than what you probably are normally comfortable with talking about in most other aspects of the music. Now, something I want to kind of give to people that might have that trepidation, think about how much money you've been considering spending or in the past on that amp or that pedal board or that drum kit or something like that. The fact that I can guarantee that you have looked at $1,000 and gone, that's fair, should be a benchmark for you to consider when you're talking to producers and you're talking to studios.
Yeah, it comes to a point where if you're willing to invest in an instrument, but you're not willing to invest in your recording,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
tripping at the finish line.
it is, but
Truly.
and to
good.
us that
I like
makes sense, and to us that's logical.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
unfortunately, to a lot of bands that
Well, these are things you
have
gotta
done,
learn.
yeah,
No,
that
I-
have done the home studio thing and done the only
Yeah.
recording by themselves, that's not a dollar amount or a consideration they've even thought they should be okay with. And I'm not saying also say like if some guy's like, oh, 10K. And you're only going in to do a 3-song EP,
Yeah,
and
that's
you
a bit
have no
excessive.
experience with it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying just sign off because that's the industry rate. He's obviously somebody that you should have a further conversation with to actually figure everything out.
It's all relative.
But
you know,
don't walk in and say, I have $200 in my pocket. Can we do an album type thing?
No.
That's also not fair nor realistic.
no, it's not. And I understand. I mean, musicians a lot of times, you know, this is perhaps unfair to say, but I think understandable. Like, you know, it's hard to make a ton of money when you are a musician and that's what you're doing. There has been kind of a reputation of this industry to be a winner take all to some degree.
Yes.
And it is true, but if you believe in your art, you know, then you do what you got to do, continue on. The art needs to be more important. And I remember, you know, my favorite composer currently is Eric Whitaker, and he's a classical choral composer. And I saw a great, I went to a lecture of his, and he made a point that I've always believed, but it makes parents go, ooh, with their children. And what that is he says, don't have a plan B. You know, if you have a plan B, but your goal was to, say, you know, be a composer, or it was to
Right.
be whatever it happens to be, an engineer, whatever. If you do like, well, I'll always have plan B if my theater career doesn't work out. It seems like logically,
it's counterintuitive.
that makes sense. Like we should have a backup, but if you have a backup, that's what you're going to do.
It always
Yeah.
feels like you're planning to fail.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Well, and
Yep.
the reality is that, and I can say this for this entire band,
Yeah.
we're not outside of the norm. We all had our plan B. We all have our 9 to 5 that
Oh,
has
absolutely.
health
I'm in
insurance.
plan B.
Yeah. we
Sorry, I heard something else. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
so did I.
So
I'm
this
glad
is
I wasn't the only
this
one.
Is the last podcast I'm ever going to do.
But
Starting off, Austin's like, I don't want to say something stupid. Hello,
Yeah. Have you-
I'm here to
but,
do that.
yeah, we are all a product of our plan B. And
I don't think that's any better.
our plan B, not
we know
the
what you
plan
mean,
B.
Steve. Continue.
But if, and this is not to say that
Going off the rails.
yeah, it always does. This is not to say that that's necessarily something that you should feel bad about, because all of us, most of us have, in some capacity, responsibilities. We have the house, the rent, possibly kids, possibly a spouse, stuff like that. And not stating that you should not still go after it, because we're all still obviously going after it.
And that's why you're making traction.
Yeah.
You're gaining traction.
But at the same time, I get it, because I'm fully there. I had my moment right before me and my wife actually really started dating, where I almost moved out of state, and that was going to be I'm going all in on this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how many bands I jump in and out of.
Yeah, but
I
that
will
was your
find
life. That was going to be your life.
I will
Yep.
find the project that's going to end up getting me there.
Yeah.
And it ended up being where I kind of had this moment where I had to kind of sit there and go, okay,
You have to decide
if I
that's
decide
enough. Yep.
to end up making this relationship the real thing and
Yeah.
everything, not because I can't make it happen. It's not going to be fair to her.
Yeah.
And this is also not stating that this is the way that it'd be with everybody and their spouse and everything like that. You might find the spouse that's like, you better do this, and I'm not going to let you have any other option. For me, it was one of those, her stating, if we're going to be in a relationship, then you need to be present and everything. And it was not an unfair request. It was just that was her
It's
stance.
managing expectations, right? You got to have expectations in relationships.
And so it was
as well as dance.
do I go all in to be the musician? Do I go for my only plan A, I don't give myself a plan B?
Mm-hmm.
Or do I consider this not necessarily even a plan B, but an alternate course of action?
Yeah.
And that's ultimately
And
what I went for.
it's scary.
And it's not that if anybody else out there, if you're doing that, don't stop being a musician just because of that. Don't think that because you gave yourself a quote-unquote plan B,
Yeah.
that you shouldn't be doing
You got to
this
do
anymore.
it what's right for you,
Yes.
but understand if you have a plan B, you'll probably do the plan B.
Yep. And if you're wanting to be that level of producer, that level engineer, that level of musician, not saying it's always going to work out where every time every single one of you is going to make it, but you sure as hell are going to have a lot better odds
Yeah.
than everybody
Well,
else.
and like I said, the reason, I mean, you guys have been doing this for so long, and the reason why, you're starting to get the listens, and you're starting to make traction, play these bigger shows, and have a label and all that kind of stuff, is because you didn't stop.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a cliche, but it's like, it's only over when you give up. And a lot of times we don't know that it may have been only a year later or a month later that something happens.
Or
what
the
do
song.
they say? They say you're overnight, or you're a 10-year overnight success or something
exactly.
like that. Yep.
Overnight successes, they didn't, just like we were talking about the glamour and the work, people didn't see what went into that overnight success.
Yeah, because the reality is for most people, they don't realize, like, when we were in West Virginia, I can promise not a single person that was there knew that this band had already been actively going and playing and doing things for over a decade.
Yeah.
We were the brand new guy.
Yeah.
To where if you would have walked up to anybody at that festival, oh, those are the brand new guys. They just started.
Yeah.
It's
it
like,
seems overnight to them. Yep. That's
yeah, we
absolutely
just
right.
started 10 years ago with this project,
Yep.
over 20 years ago for most of us,
Yep.
as musicians in general. So we've all put in the time and everything like that. But yes, it is exactly that. It's the 10-year overnight success and everything. And I don't know. It's one of those, if you can, to your point, if you feel like you have everything in place, that you have the art to share or the information to share, like from a producer and engineer or something like that standpoint, then go for it if it's what makes sense to you.
Yeah. Don't take my advice and be riding in the gutter somewhere. I don't want to be.
Pud
blamed
told
for
me
that.
I would be a great engineer if I
No.
just left everything.
Believe me, I mean, you absolutely need to at least know, like, hey, this could be viable. If you're just, if you play, I've been playing guitar for a year and think you're gonna make it.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just
I still, and this is another thing, kind of that statement of you're always a student. I personally still think I suck in a lot of respects when I'm sitting there working and trying to write up a riff. I'm like, I'm just doing a bar chord. I'm just doing a power chord. Literally everybody who's ever spent more than a week with the guitar can do what I'm doing right now.
I'm just a bass player.
Yeah. It's but it's one of those, then you end up walking into a situation where you have the trusted ear where you're like, is this worthwhile? And it's just because you didn't do some big sweep thing and some over elaborate thing doesn't mean that it was technically bad or the wrong thing or underwhelming or anything like that. You going for that power chord on the 7th fret might have been the money shot of what made that riff the riff type thing. So,
well, as you said, sometimes when you have less resources, you're more resourceful, and that goes in the writing too. Sometimes the most basic breakdown of the most basic chorus becomes
suffocates breakdown. We were discussing it.
Becomes that
open in one, but it's the thing that works.
Yeah, it becomes the thing that works. It becomes the hook, the earworm. It becomes the one thing that's the catalyst for the whole song, which ends up, igniting the whole album. Or you just never know. Like you don't have to be super technical.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly right.
The entirety of the new metal scene proved that you do not need to be technically adept.
Yeah, and well,
to
that's the
blow
thing.
up.
Crazy technicality doesn't mean good.
Yeah.
I remember it was it Bad Company? The band I Feel Like Making Love, those kind of songs.
Yeah.
They tried to make simple songs and talked about how difficult it was.
Yeah.
Because these are all fantastic musicians that could go crazy, on their instruments and stuff. But to make a simple song that's good, that's the ticket.
Oh yeah, I mean,
it's hard.
Honestly, it rubs me wrong because I feel like we've written so many other things. Oh no, that's right, Rob.
Chris will rub you right.
Yeah, no, it rubs me wrong that I feel like we've written so many better songs over the years, but Pinocchio, one of the most fundamentally basic, rudimentary riffing songs that I have ever done anything over. Is one of the most earwormed, catchy.
That was one of the things that I no matter what, I was like, we're playing that song.
Yeah.
And you guys were like, well, we play it every show. I was like, exactly. It's catchy. It gets stuck in you. It's like I'm sure it's not from your original album or anything, but it's old enough that you can be like, hey, this is from the early days. Yep. And so you can throw back to the early days of Contrøller. But even for me, obviously I'm
that
playing
was one
some
that
other
you
drummer.
said used to hook
it is
you from
it
a
is the
listener
same
standpoint.
as an audience member, but as the drummer now I'm playing the same thing over and over and over and over the whole song.
Yeah,
but it's so fun. It's so fun. It's so comfortable. I'm doing those stick flips.
Yeah, once
as
you
long
get
as
into
there's
the
no
pocket of
overheads.
it and everything. But those are the moments that, like you were stating, the easy songs are the hard ones to write, because had I actually put effort and thought into all the things, it would have been where I wouldn't have been able to write that. I ended up having to kind of get steered by our original drummer, Brandon, of I'm doing this drum pattern. And it kind of left me up against the wall of if you're going to keep doing that, I don't really have an option but to just keep doing these simple things.
Serve the song.
It really
But that's
did.
also, we talked, trying to roll this in. Everybody's got to have a different hat. And for that moment, Brandon was wearing the producer hat and be like, hey, this is where we need to steer this song into this direction. This is what I'm hearing versus what you're doing. And you were open and susceptible to that. So
yeah, because Bob had come up with just a pattern and a rhythm idea, threw it at Brandon. Brandon just literally stayed in that pocket the whole time.
Literally.
And then I ended up stuck there.
Except the heritage. Oh,
yeah.
Brandon, you and your footwork, man.
Yeah, and then Chad subsequently ended up stuck just kind of like I was, where this is kind of the only pocket and everything like that. Because Jeff ended up finding
I referenced Pinocchio on this earlier.
That's what I'm saying. Because you had already done that, then Jeff ended up finding that was a pocket. And then you ended up, hey, welcome. I'm just doing this. This is where you live.
Now I got to drop back down to here.
Yeah. This is where you live. This is your home now. But yeah, it's just because it's simple doesn't mean it's bad. But at the same time, just because you put a lot of effort into it also doesn't mean that it's going to be bad. We got a song that's coming up here called Discover. The verse riff is probably one of the most technical riffs that I've probably actually done in this band. But the vibe and the feel while we were listening through for all the pre-pro meeting was that it was just a general groove going on to where I'm playing a really technical riff, but it's not getting presented in this extra technical flashy way in the context of the song. So it's one of those, when you're looking at this and you're looking and talking to a potential producer and everything, don't have them be like, oh, well, it needs to be flashier or it needs to be dumbed down or something like that. Make sure they're actually there to help serve the song. Exactly. Because everything needs to serve the song at the end of the day.
I'm just trying to embarrass Chris.
I gotta pick up all these little catchphrases. New drum heads, serve the song. Okay, I'm good.
Yeah,
you got
because-
it. That's it.
That's it.
You
That's
got
it.
You
That's
got
my
it.
job.
You're right.
Hey, there it is.
Oh, and more than a pair of sticks is always helpful.
I will have all the sticks.
But yeah, I mean, that's something that I want to, and I think with having the producer here to kind of back us up and everything, for all other band members out there, from other bands that we play with, don't play with, whoever might be listening to this, please, if nothing else, take away from having a producer in your camp. Always just go into the song for the purpose of serving the song. Do not go in for the purpose of serving yourself or serving some identity of what you think a flashy, pretty version of that riff, or what you think you might gain out of it by going and doing that live at a show or something. None of it is going to end up translating.
You want somebody
authentically.
who's going to put their stamp of their name out there, and they're not just in it for the paycheck. They're not in it for clout. They're not in it to record another group and say, hey, I've recorded this many bands, or I've done this many hours in the studio, come see me. You want somebody who's willing, and much like tattooing, like that's permanent. So once you create something with your producer,
Yeah, it's out there.
and you
Yep.
put it out there, that becomes permanent.
Yep.
And you want their name attached to it just as much as they want to be eager to do it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I agree 100%.
We have actually brought things to Mr. Putt here before in the past where he goes, I'm not putting my name
I'm
on
not putting
that.
my name on that.
I genuinely, and that's even with the friendship levels that we have had. We have got
I think it's because of the friendship levels.
Well,
That-
yeah,
yeah.
I agree. I mean, because if I say that, then I'm really feeling like no skis.
Yeah.
And
it could be for any reason. It could be for a riff. It could be for the general theme of the song. It could be...
I'm always willing to try anything and all that kind of stuff, but there comes a point at times where there's a reason why I'm hired. It's to know if something isn't going to
Yes.
work or not. And a lot of it is trial and error, and then it's picking your battles and knowing how much time you can devote to an idea.
And trust me, there has been certain battles that you've had in and amongst the whole band
oh yeah,
where you've gone, is this the one? Is this the battle I'm going to go?
yeah, it's just, yeah.
No, this isn't the one.
It's not worth it.
But the next one,
Mhm.
oh, that's going to be the one.
Yeah, if Steve says anything, he's going to get it.
Yep. Not to mention the 18-hour recording session we did one time.
Yeah, well,
I'm all about it.
Yeah, no, not that one. That
No, I'm
one
all
hurt.
about it.
that was
No, that one was a single 20-minute break in 18 hours.
yeah. That
Oh,
one,
well, speaking of breaks, I have to
Yep.
go.
yeah.
So-
let's wrap this.
On that note,
The old grandpa bladder is catching up to me.
Time
Serve
goes
the-
faster than I
Just
expect.
remember, serve the song.
Serve
Yep.
the song.
serve the song, find somebody who actually feels as passionate about your project as you do and is willing to actually be a trusted partner.
And honest about things. I mean,
Yes.
if I was just like, oh, that's great,
Communication.
oh, that's great,
Yep.
oh, that's great, oh, that's great, then
You're getting no benefit out of
yeah,
anything.
it's just
So,
like, do you want a yes man or do you want to make a great product?
yep.
And that's what we're in it for.
Yep.
So stay tuned. Like I said, we will be in the throes of recording.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Throwing down some tracks, and we got some new stuff coming out with Austin. So
Yeah. Yep.
Plenty of new stuff
Exciting
over
times.
years now. There's
And
going
then
to be...
can I finally be rid of you, Steve?
Yeah, you actually
No.
you probably can.
I just signed on for this project, so you know that's not how this works.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
he's finally willing to agree to become the guitarist for Contrøller is what he's saying.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
What was that?
That is.
Well, I might concur to that.
There you go. He
All
has a
right.
better basement than I do anyway.
He said it. He liked the butt rock. So
Yep. And he has a better basement with all the recording stuff anyway. I swear to God, the pre-pros will sound a whole lot better.
Oh, Steve.
But on that note, we are 3 episodes in off
I
of this
don't know.
one.
We might be
recording
able
now.
to stretch a full month out of this one.
Yeah, maybe. But if, for whatever reason, you are in the market for any type of studio work needs, please reach out to Austin. He may or may not actually take your work on.
What a sales pitch, dude. That's great. Give me a call. I may or may not be doing it,
I mean, that's the real, though.
you never know until you try, right?
Right.
And that
But
was
You never
that's
know
what we
till
were
you
talking
try.
about. If you have a producer that you like the sound of,
Yep.
feel free to reach out.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, just you can reach
Not
out.
stating that he is
we can
not a
talk.
friendly guy. He will definitely be friendly with you.
I'm very friendly.
But that
Except
is
with
also
Steve.
not him promising he will take on all of the work.
He'll buy you a shot of Malort.
Never again.
Chris, do you want another one?
No, absolutely not.
Do you want to pour axle grease down your gullet?
Yeah.
No.
No.
I was duped into the last one.
Yes.
But yes, Facebook, find him at 1521 Studios. You can also find him at 1521studios.com, I believe. Still?
Maybe.
It's under construction at the moment.
Still under
I was hoping you
construction.
weren't going to say that. Because
Well, in a month-
Literally, I have it, but I've completely changed it. It's under construction.
Okay, so maybe in 2 months from now when this is up, the website
Facebook,
might be up.
Instagram's fine.
Yep. And you can also email him
Yep.
at Austin at 1521studios.com
Correct.
for any type of meetings that you may want to arrange
Yeah,
or
consultations
or ask for pricing or any of that type of stuff. So
Yep.
there is more than a few ways to get a hold of him. And, well, again, thanks, bud.
Thank you.
Bye.
We appreciate you. Goodbye. Thank you for listening to Actually Controller. If you liked what you heard, please consider following us on all our socials. You can easily find us on all the different platforms by going to linktree/controller33 or scan the QR code if you are watching the video version of this episode. Thank you.